Rolled your ankle and not sure what to do next. Most people either try to do too much in their first week of recovery or not quite enough. So today we're going to get you started off on your ankle recovery the right way. This video is going to cover what you want to do in week 1, and there will be 3 more weeks to come, week 2, 3, and 4, and we'll link those below. So if you're already through week 1, you don't need to watch this video. Go ahead and jump to week 2, 3, or 4, whichever one is appropriate for you. I'm Dr. Amy, PhD in Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapy, and 4 weeks ago, I sprained my ankle while I was running. I decided I needed to share with you the tips that I used to deal with my lateral ankle sprain. You see, a lot of people say a lot of things on YouTube, and it can be really confusing because it depends on what phase of rehab you're in. And each week is significantly different, as you'll see as we go through the series. So today, we're going to cover week 1. And the theme of week 1 is manage the swelling and do what you can. Now you may be saying to yourself, what do you mean, do what you can? Well, see, I'm a manual physical therapist, which means I spend 10 hours a day on my feet. And not going to work on a daily basis as a business owner was not an option for me. So I still had to be on my feet for 10 hours a day, which meant that I was going to get more swelling, and I had to manage it the best I could. Now, yes, I had to kind of limp around the clinic, and no, that wasn't the ideal situation, but you probably don't find yourself in the ideal situation either, because you probably didn't plan on getting an ankle sprain. And now here you are having to deal with it. So although you do want to limit your activity as much as you can to pain-free activity, I understand that you're probably going to have to go about living your life. So that's why I'm here today, to give you all of my top tips to help you manage your lateral ankle sprain in the first week. First up, let's discuss the anatomy of a lateral ankle sprain. So this is a right foot. The lateral aspect is the outside aspect. There's actually 3 ligaments here that make up the lateral ankle ligaments. And most commonly what will happen when you sprain is you'll sprain this one here, that's the ATFL. Then sometimes you'll sprain the CFL. And then sometimes you'll sprain this one back here if you have a really bad sprain. Now, if you've been to the doctor and they've said that you have a grade 4 ankle sprain, that means that all 3 ligaments are actually involved in it. Now, this will become really important as we get to weeks 3 and 4 because the ligaments that are impacted also create stability in that lateral ankle. And that's going to be important as we move forward. However, in week 1, that's not super important because you need to get your stability from an outside source. Well, it looks like either a brace or a wrap. Now, here's how I use these in my day-to-day activity when I was recovering from my ankle sprain. During the day, when I needed to be up on my feet, I needed to have as much stability as I could. Obviously, there's a ton of swelling in the ankle, so the ankle is not going to be providing that stability for me, so I need a really strong brace. I did a review actually of this brace, and we'll link that here so you can go check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. And in that video, I also put the brace on, and this was when I was early on in my ankle sprain recovery, because I wanted to show you how you can put it on. Because you may be looking at me saying, I cannot put a brace on. It hurts to move my ankle at all. And I hear you, which is why I chose this brace in particular. But that brace is pretty bulky and it did not feel super comfortable when I was sleeping. So instead, what I would do is just use a regular ACE wrap. I'll provide a link below for this ACE wrap, but really any ACE wrap that you might happen to have around is good to help wrap the ankle. And the reason why I wrapped it at night is because when you turn over in bed, especially if you have sheets on your ankle, you know it's going to be really, really painful. Now, it's not like a loose ACE wrap is really going to make the difference on if you have any pain or not when you're turning over. However, it does give you a little bit more awareness of where that foot is. And what would happen is I would actually wake up when I needed to turn over to the other side, which isn't ideal, but it's better than hurting your ankle again while you're turning over. So many people ask me when they're suffering with any kind of sprain or strain if the Rice method actually works. And what I can tell you is when you're dealing with an active inflammation, so that is right after you sprained for the first 2 to 7 days, Rice is super helpful. And that is rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Now, I don't like the C aspect. I don't like having compression when I'm resting and icing, because what I like to do is make sure that your foot, in this case, is elevated and that you have some ice on your ankle and foot. But what I want to be doing is actually doing a little bit of active motion. And I know you're probably looking at me saying, there is no way I can move that ankle. It's going to hurt so much. And I understand that you have to stay in the pain-free range. So what I would do is I would elevate my foot, I would put some ice around the ankle, and then I would do just little ankle pumps. It basically looked like this. I went burp, 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 burp. Now, that doesn't seem like much, and it wasn't at the time, but that was the motion that I had that was pain-free. So whenever I was icing, instead of compressing, I was actually moving the joint and getting the muscles to activate a little bit more. You see, it's not so much the rest, the ice or the compression or the elevation that is going to help move that inflammation out. It is actually getting the muscles pumping that's going to be the most effective way to deal with your swelling. Now, in addition to the brace, if you have a really bad ankle sprain and you are limping around, I do recommend using something like a walking stick or even a crutch potentially, not necessarily to elevate the foot while you're walking, but in order to help provide you a little bit more stability. Unfortunately, I threw out my crutches about a year ago because I was determined that I was never going to need them again. Side note, if you have crutches, don't ever throw them out, because that means you'll need them again. But if I had had them, I definitely would have used them in the first 3 days just to take some of the weight off of my ankle while I was walking. So let's talk about safe movements. Obviously, anytime you're standing on that one ankle, it is not going to be stable, and chances are good it's going to be excruciatingly painful. This becomes particularly important when you're doing traditional activities that are on one foot, like walking, which is where the walking stick can come in handy. Another one is if you need to go up and down stairs. Now, initially upstairs wasn't too bad, but downstairs was horrendous. So if you are going downstairs or even up and you're having a lot of pain, I highly recommend using that handrail to make sure that you have a little bit of support. If you don't have a walking stick, you could also use a walking stick. But you want to remember this little trick. The good leg goes to heaven, the bad leg goes to hell. So if you are walking upstairs, you want to lead with your good leg. If you're walking downstairs, you want to lead with your bad leg. And when I was walking downstairs initially, I would not walk foot over foot. I would put my left foot, that's my bad leg. I would put my left foot down, right foot on the same step. Left foot down, right foot on the same step. Yeah, I know it takes forever. I live in a 2-story house and my office is on the 2nd story of the building. Plan your timing accordingly. Now, another thing that is really challenging is getting into your car, because for me, in the driver's seat, I'm going to push off of my left foot in order to get into the car. Yeah, that was not going to happen in the first week. So what I did instead is I would sit on my seat and then I would just turn myself around until I was in the car. Luckily, I no longer drive a stick shift, so I would plant my left foot firmly on the ground so it would be as stable as possible while I was driving, and then obviously my right foot could do all the work. So it is important as much as you can to keep equal weight through both legs, or even put a little bit more weight on the good leg while the bad leg or the sprained ankle is recovering. Now, the truth of the matter is you are going to get swelling. That's how the body is responding to this situation to bring the healing nutrients. And in the first 7 days, the goal is just to manage the swelling as much as you can. So because I stand for 10 hours a day, my swelling would be really bad at night. So at night, I would need to spend a couple of sessions from 10 to 15 minutes with my feet elevated with ice on it and doing those just little bitty ankle pumps. Because by the end of the day, I basically was carrying around a tree trunk. Now, in a perfect world, you would be able to do that ice and elevation and those little ankle pumps multiple times throughout the day, preferably between 5 and 10. And I know that sounds crazy because that basically equates to every hour, but if you work from home or you're in a situation where you can do that, it will be more helpful because then you're actively managing the swelling throughout the day. But I understand we do not live in a perfect world, so you have to make the adjustments. If you can only do it early in the morning before you go to work, and then you do it at night before you go to bed, it is what it is. However, make sure before you go to bed that you have spent enough time to get that swelling to start moving out, because what we don't want is for it to sit there for a long time. That can lead to an issue called compartment syndrome, and trust me, that is not what we want to deal with. Now, what movement is actually safe in the first week? Well, the truth is the movement that is safe in the first week, and this is actually going to be true for 2, 3, and 4 too, is the movement that does not increase your pain. And you may be looking at me saying, every single movement increases my pain. And that's why I did those little ankle pumps. That was all I could do pain-free, so that was all I did. Now, as we progress through the weeks, I'm going to give you some more ideas and things to try in order to help get that swelling moving out. However, this week, again, it's all just about managing the swelling and getting on with what you need to do. And let's talk about what you need to do. I will admit that that first week, my world got really, really small. My need to do list is usually 5 pages long. However, that first week, it got really small. Take care of your people, make sure you see your patients, and make sure you're taking care of your body. Everything else pretty much went out the window. And that's what I would recommend for you. Get really, really clear on what is it that you have to do. Not the usual what I do. I usually go to the gym every morning. I usually work out every morning. Obviously, I was not working out in that first week. I was getting more sleep than normal so that my body could heal. I was making sure that I was eating correctly to have the nutrients in order to repair and heal. I was staying hydrated because that helps to clear out the swelling. And I was focusing on what my body needed for healing and to be able to do the things I need to do. So what should you avoid in week 1? In week 1, you want to avoid aggravating your ankle as much as possible. And I know you're probably saying, anytime I stand up, I aggravate my ankle. And like I said, I stand on my feet 10 hours a day, so I do get that. It is a matter of moderation of what can you avoid and still be able to do the things that you need to do. Now, a side caveat that I'm hoping that you will not need was that 4 days after I sprained my ankle, I had to get on an airplane to go to a conference. Now, usually when I fly and have no ankle sprain, I wear compression socks because I'm old like that and I need compression socks when I fly. But when I got up that morning, I was like, there's no way I can put compression socks on. I still had a tree trunk for a calf, and I was like, this is going to be so painful. But then PT side of the brain took over and said, wait a second, if you already have that much swelling in your calf and then you get on an airplane, how is that going to work for you? So friends, I put on the compression socks. And no, it was not easy. And yes, there was a little bit of pain. But in this case, I had to get on that airplane, so I had to make sure that I was protecting my body as much as possible. So if you're someone who needs to travel, or maybe you're on your feet for long periods of time, I will say that the little bit of pain that comes from putting compression socks on can definitely be worth it and helpful. I am super glad I did it. I'm quite sure that that did help manage my symptoms during that weekend while I was at the conference, and empowered me to be able to walk up and down the street to be able to get to the conference that I had flown to attend. In a perfect world, I would recommend not going to a conference, especially if you're flying right after an ankle sprain, and clearing your calendar as much as possible to give your body time to heal. If this video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you know someone who's struggling with a lateral ankle sprain and still in their first week, please share this video with them. And if you want to hear what happens in week 2 and what you should be focusing on during that time, very different than week 1, I'm going to have you check out this video over here.